What is a woman?
A woman is a quantum oscillation amongst 10,000 fractal paradigms in a post-constructivist matrix. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Brother man, in the Nubian cosmos, a woman transcends amongst multifaceted kaleidoscopes amongst 10,000 ancestral vibrations. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Man, we all know what a woman is. A woman is a...
What is a woman?
A woman is an adult female with almost always 2 X chromosomes. Brother man,
you
a sellout.
I'm a straight Democrat, but I'm for the best person.
Oh, yes,
but
sir.
Now, why you got Donald Trump?
Because I paid attention in school when I was a kid. I know the true history of both the Republican and Democratic Party. I know that they really didn't switch.
Duh.
During the Nixon Southern strategy, that one became more clever than the other in dealing with black people. We the Democrats, we were the Republicans' friends. We was their friends, but we were the Democrats.
Her head explodes.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me, if you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none. Not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked not about illegal immigrants. I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission president, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
Well, that clears that up.
In phases 1, 2, and 3, they did what no other studio could do. That every time a new Marvel movie was coming out, we all expected it to be great. We would go into the theaters not wondering if it would be great. We used to go into the theaters expecting, like it was magic. And since Endgame, that magic is gone. We've gone from expecting it would be great to hoping it'll be good.
And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down, and Bob Iger is what's going on with that stock?
Who's racist? Trump. Now tell me what makes him racist.
The fact that he called for the public execution of the 5 Central Park motherfuckers even before they went to trial.
Let's say your daughter gets raped.
I'm looking to kill them motherfuckers.
Let's say your daughter gets raped, right? Now, I happen to be in the area because I was wilding, I was robbing people, harassing people. Your daughter gets raped, she's beat so bad that she can't even remember what happened.
She can't even function.
Police arrest me for being in the area, and I admit to doing that to your daughter, right? How would you feel? How would you feel? Answer the question. How would you feel? How would you feel? What did you say right before, just now? Right before I let you finish, what you were saying? No, you said you want to kill a motherfucker.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Right.
Yo, if you admit to raping somebody, whether you did it or not, you should never admit it to. And the fact that you did is okay for you to feel like that. Now, you can say Trump is insensitive for not apologizing after finding out that they didn't rape. But at that moment, he had all right to feel like that. Just like you feel the same way.
She was stunned.
Why did you argue that religious services, religious people pose a greater risk of infection than people gathered to argue for defunding the police?
The policies restricted all types of activity in the district.
All types of activity in the district?
Yes, Senator.
Did it restrict mass protests in the district?
I don't believe it said anything one way or another.
Of course it did, because it didn't accept mass protests. If you want to come and protest, defund the police, if you want to support that, that's fine. You can gather en masse, person to person, close up, thousands of people. That's okay. You know the facts. You were a good lawyer. Why'd you lose?
Senator.
Oh, come on, Judge. Don't make me do this. Mayor Bowser was going to mass protests herself personally with thousands of people. At the same time she was doing that, she was prohibiting churches from gathering socially distanced outside wearing masks.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to. In that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill."
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Kyle, and this is the Conservative Take. And this is a semi-daily show. We come on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and Fridays to discuss what's going on in the news, what's going on in politics, streaming on Rumble and YouTube and X. And we're going to be doing an extension on Locals, which is our pay site, our membership site that we're now converting over from the YouTube membership. And before I get into anything right now, I will mention this because I will be pushing this quite a bit. So if you were a member on YouTube for any reason and you're listed below or in the past, we encourage you to go over to Locals, go to Rumble and click on the join button. It's a pink button next to our name on Rumble. Click on that, follow the instructions, and you can plug in there. I think they're asking for the minimum of $2 a month, which is less than what YouTube was charging, what we were charging YouTube. So with that out of the way, let's talk about a little bit today, because this may be a little bit of a controversy. My wife and I got into a little bit of a discussion because my wife is super duper conservative and she toes the line of fiscal conservatism, which I 100% respect. But we got into it a little bit about the CR resolution. And I'm sure it's going to be, probably with this audience here, it's going to be pretty controversial. You may not like what I have to say about it. Spoiler alert, I support the president. But I also understand why people are opposed to it. And I created an article, or my team did today, concerning the CR resolution, which I believe passed the House today. So we'll talk about that. We'll read the article in its entirety. I won't make a judgment on you, whether or not you fall one side or the other. I totally get it. And as conservatives, typically, we are going to go on ideology, faith, over any one person. People accuse people who support the president or people who are so-called MAGA or America First people as people who are following the piper off a cliff, they would say. But in actuality, it's really the Democrats that actually do that. I mean, they're the ones that are the lemmings. They are the ones who are the hive mentality. They're the ones who are the shills. They're the ones who are the NPCs, the non-playable characters who just knock over on anything that the media tells them to do. Put this sticker on, put this banner on, put this thing onto your profile picture. Wear a mask. Put something in your body that never has really been tested. They'll do it. Walk in lines up and down the grocery store aisle because the arrows tell you which way to go. Think this way, feel this way, and whatever. That's them. That's not us. So as a side effect of what we are, we think for ourselves. So when stuff like this comes up, the CR resolution, the continuation resolution, which we will discuss in detail, I'll explain everything about it, why I feel we should move forward with it, regardless of what people may say, like Massey, the congressman. But again, I understand both sides, and I won't argue against you other than the fact to say, let's look at the big perspective and let's see where this thing is really headed and why do people push one way or the other. But the lead on this is actually, it's funny because I did this today thinking that this would be the headline, because I do this stuff, I prep it around lunchtime and prior to me coming into work. And I think I hedge as into what I feel will be the headline for the night show. Certainly, you would think that a peace deal with Ukraine, 30-day ceasefire, would be something that would headline. Well, maybe. Because I think the HR resolution may have actually clipped that, because it did pass, I believe, right after that was announced. So we'll talk about that first. We'll read over the article that we did in Locals, which is part of that join portion that I mentioned to you before about Rumble that we're doing. It's all right now above board. It's all free. And at some point in time, we're going to start restricting some of our content because I personally think that we're putting out some really good content that is pretty timely. When things pop off on Twitter and people are going whatever, I tell my team, okay, work on this and get it back to me within an hour and I'll edit it or I'll approve it. And then we'll put it up there for you guys to take a look at because things are going so quickly. We want to have a rapid response to these kind of issues. So it's all free now, but at some point in the future, a month or so, I think maybe we'll see. We're going to start restricting some of that content because I think it's going to be a value add that you're not going to be able to see anywhere else. In fact, that's a good segue into later on. We're going to talk about elections and how the Republican Party, MAGA, I would say, not the Republican Party, the MAGA-led, America First-led Republican Party is crushing it in the voter registration arena. And I'll show you about one particular bellwether state, how it's doing, and a guy named Seth, he has a Substack, which I subscribe to, has some really good information about that. And he puts his content behind a paywall, and it's very much worth it. So we want to get to that point where people feel like, yes, this is worth something for us to actually pay a couple bucks a month to have access to. But the really important stuff, I will say, we'll put out there for free regardless. If it's really going to be benefiting everybody, then I think we should have everyone see it. It's that important. I don't think we should put paywall behind stuff that's really, really important that we need to see, particularly this particular CR resolution when it's time critical. All right. All right. So let's see. I think we have a comment here, but let's get into that before we. Yep. No comments so far. Okay. So here we go. Let's start off with this guy here. This is going to be our resolution, or actually the peace deal that's being shown right now to, I think Russia's going to be looking at it in terms of their agreements to this. And so if you guys have really been following along the whole Ukraine deal, the situation essentially the way it was left is, well, first there was a negotiation, I believe, with Russia and the United States. They were talking. I think Trump believes in the principle of negotiating separately and then coming together collectively. And then after that, of course, prior to that, Ukraine was up in arms saying, why aren't we invited to the table? Trump and the State Department said, wait. And then, as you know, Zelensky came to D.C., to the Oval Office. You know that whole story. He ended up getting kicked out of the White House. And then he went off to, where did he go? He went to Europe, the EU, to beg for money there. They promised and promised and promised, but basically said, no, we don't have anything for you. Go back to DC and beg some more. And he did say that the White House meeting with him was regrettable. And so now they're willing to get back to the negotiation table. And this particular thing was essentially a minerals deal where the U.S. would get compensated for the money that we've given them, the billions of dollars, upward from 180 to $300 billion or more, and some of which has been unaccounted for, mind you, to recoup some of that money back through minerals, which would meaning that we come into the area, which is very rich, Ukraine that is, and mine that area to help leverage us against China, who has a 90% market share when it comes to the material that you need to do superconductors and chips and technology. And so we can't have that over leverage with China. So this helps to push China away from Russia, push China away from Ukraine, and give Ukraine a measure of security because Russia would be less likely to invade further or to attack when you have American souls occupied in a peacetime role, mind you, in a business partnership role, mind you, in Ukraine. So let's go ahead and take a look at this because I really haven't prepped this yet. It says here that Ukraine, this is from Breitbart, Ukraine has agreed to an immediate 30-day ceasefire negotiated by the United States if Russia also accepts the plan. officials announced Tuesday. After Ukrainian representatives met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mark Walls in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, they quote, expressed readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to enact an immediate interim 30-day ceasefire, which can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties and which is subject to acceptance and concurrent implementation. What kind of wordage is this? This verbiage is like really out of control. Implementation by the Russian Federation. So basically, it's a 30-day ceasefire. It's got to be accepted and blah, 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 blah. So that's what it is. It's kind of big news. And I'm pretty sure that the globalists, the elite, the Democrats in general are mad, mainly because Trump said it or helped to facilitate this. And also, let's just be clear. I mean, let's just be fair, because, the European Union and NATO, for that matter, and if you go back to the videos we saw before that I showed you, which I may actually play real quickly here, if I can find it real quickly, prep it up, about the whole thing about this whole thing was basically set up so that government defense contracts could be in place, and so that the incursion West could help expand the war powers, and of course the military-industrial complex benefits. Never mind the fact that you're going up against a nuclear power, Russia. It's just a dangerous situation that's not tenable at all. So Walls here said we've gone from if the war is going to end to how the war is going to end. Military aid will restart immediately. He told me in Jeddah, the current presidential drawdown authority will restart. So, yeah, this is okay. So this is basically them and Zelensky and J.D. Vance and the president in the Oval Office a few weeks ago. And that's pretty much where we are now. And that's what we have. So I think right now we're waiting on Russia to see what they do. And I'm curious, because what Russia essentially wants, and I think it's pretty clear what they want to prevent the incursions from happening to their borders. And that would give them the sense of security in the sense that they're not being threatened by their enemies. I mean, it's almost as if you have Canada or Mexico, for that matter, allowing China or North Korea to set up shop right along our border. I mean, it's an imminent threat. I mean, we have something called manifest destiny, basically saying anything on our side of the hemisphere is ours. Don't mess with it. That includes Greenland. And I'm sure Moscow, Putin has their own policy as well. I mean, to basically just to prevent themselves from being subject to having to respond to an incursion on their borders. So again, I mentioned before that I'm not a fan of Putin. I'm not a fan of Zelensky. I'm a fan of the Russian people. I'm a fan of the Ukrainian people, because by and large, they're innocent from all this. And typically most of the citizens of most countries are innocent from the decisions that their government makes. So it's a situation that our president wants to end. He wants to end this war, end the bloodshed, because that is the only thing that's going to protect us all in the end. Because if you have a continual escalation of hostilities, then what's going to end up happening is the escalation can cause for World War III, and there's no real way to not see that. So with that being said, let's jump into the next topic here, because I want to get into this because it's going to be a while to discuss. If you have any questions at all, if you're on Rumble, I'm looking at the live chat here, or if you're on YouTube or Facebook or X for that matter, just comment below and I will break away and I will actually respond to your comments. All right, so let's just jump into this particular. Actually, that's the wrong one. Let's go into, let me go back. This is something different. This is a preview of what we're going to talk about later. So let me remove this and let me get into. I actually shared my screen and actually cut the screen off, which I shouldn't have done that. So we're going to go into our locals, and this is where we have our article for today. And this particular article is entitled, which I'll bring up in a second here. It's entitled "The Truth About the CR," which is the Continual Resolution, Why the Naysayers Are Getting Played. So here we are. Let me share this. And here we have it. So let me just read this verbatim, and then we'll talk about it. So this is what we put out about 6 hours ago. And we said this: fiscal conservatives and many in the MAGA community rightly want to prove that principles come before politics, even when it means pushing back against President Trump. This instinct is good. It separates us from the sheepish party line obedience of the left. Like I said before, the people who just do whatever, they knock over and they just do whatever the media tells them to do. Conservatives don't do that by and large. However, it's also being weaponized against us. And by the way, this passed, so this isn't a huge deal, but I want to read this because I want to make sure that there's not a lot of animosity, that there is a method behind this. And this is our opinion. This is our take. This is our position. And if by all means, if you don't agree with this, let me know. I'll be more than happy to hear that and talk about it. And maybe you can change my mind. The narrative that supporting the continuing resolution is a betrayal of conservative values is a false one, driven by grandstanders, and that's by President Trump's words, like Thomas Massey. Now, my wife didn't like me writing this. She's a big fan of Thomas Massey. So I had to listen to her, and I'm going to get after this. I'm going to talk about this to her and say, okay, talk me down. What's where was I wrong? But nevertheless, let's keep going. By taking the bait, we risk handing a win to the very forces we're fighting. Now, I will say this quickly. Now, the omnibus bill, I was opposed to when Trump signed it back in his first term. I was opposed to that big time. But this is not the same thing. The entrenched bureaucrats and career politicians who thrive in chaos. It's time to cut through the noise and see the bigger picture. The CR is a temporary funding measure that keeps the government operating when a full budget hasn't been approved. Without it, the government shuts down, leading to halted services and unpaid federal workers. This is where it gets important. Even vital programs like Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, would cease operations, inadvertently empowering entrenched bureaucrats, the swamp, to regain control, if not for a short time. Some conservatives worry that supporting a CR compromises their principles. However, this particular CR reduces wasteful spending by $13 billion without introducing any new expenditures. It ensures essential services continue while allowing time to pursue more substantial conservative reforms. President Trump has criticized Congressman Thomas Massey, labeling him a grandstander due to his consistent opposition to key legislation, including measures to prevent government shutdowns. Now, I did look at him. He was animally against spending in the war of Ukraine, so he appears to be very consistent on his fiscal conservatism. So at least they are good for him. Massey's voting record shows a pattern of dissent, often aligning with Democrats at critical moments, which has frustrated party efforts to pass conservative initiatives. Supporting the CR aligns with fiscal conservative values by reducing unnecessary spending and maintaining government functionality. It prevents the swamp from regaining power through a shutdown and keeps strategic initiatives like DOGE active. This approach reflects a commitment to a programmatic governance, ensuring that ideological principles do not impede the effective operation of the government. President Trump's call to pass the continuing resolution reflects a balanced approach to a fiscal conservatism, prioritizing both responsible spending and the uninterrupted functioning of government services. I know this is a lot, guys, but I want to read this because I want to get this out there. I know this is a little bit belaboring, but I think it's good, but you got to read it all. Otherwise, if I miss it, it's important I read everything. It's imperative for the fiscal conservatives to recognize the broader implications and support measures that align with these principles. The left is using misinformation to mislead well-meaning fiscal conservatives who only see the surface level argument. They want conservatives to believe that passing the CR is the same as supporting reckless government spending, but that's simply not true, aka that omnibus bill. This is not an omnibus bill, which is a massive long-term spending package stuffed with pork. Instead, this is a short-term measure that cuts $13 billion and prevents a shutdown that would only empower the swamp. It does not reverse commitments to cutting wasteful spending. It actually buys time to fight for deeper long-term conservative reforms. The left and the media want conservatives to make an emotional decision instead of a strategic one. And that's why he's pushing for a smart, disciplined approach. Trump only has 2 years, and the opposition knows this. Opposing helps the swamp by halting progress and running out the clock prior to the midterms. Don't fall for it. Now, saying all that, I'm going to put on my fiscal conservative hat, and I'm going to argue about what I just said. I'm going to argue again. Everything I just said, I'm going to take the opposite approach here and just show that I'm trying to at least be fair in my assessment. Okay, so here we go. I don't care. It's a continuation of a bill that needs to be stopped. If the government shuts down, so what? The Democrats are going to be in a position where they're going to be the ones who are going to take the hit, especially when you look at what happened last week with the joint session on Congress. The Democrats will take the hit. The government will go down. We'll save spending. The public will understand that, hey, we can get by without the government. Now, mind you, it's a partial shutdown. It's not a major shutdown. It's just, it's a partial. But nevertheless, the optics would be such that the Democrats were the one that were obstructing. And so, no, we need to hold firm and not kick the can down the road and not pass this thing and figure out another way to get this thing done without spending this bill. That's the other side. And if I didn't frame that the right way, let me know. But I do want you to know that I understand both sides because I'm a lot like you. I don't care. I want to not do spending. I don't want to kowtow to the Democrats at all. But at the same time, I feel that the 2 years we have running, we have to keep going full steam ahead. And Trump is doing some really cool things with judicial workarounds with some of these judges. He's doing things like, for instance, there is one judge, I forget exactly what the case is, but this particular judge, I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but it goes like this. Trump made an executive order and a judge added, I know what it was. It was for the extradition or the what's the word? The deportation of a criminal who was going to go away. And there was a judge in New York that said, no, the president doesn't have the ability to kick him out yet. It must go before another hearing and blah, 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 blah. But what Trump did was ahead of that was move him from a blue state of New York into a red state of Louisiana. And based on jurisdiction, that New York liberal judge can't touch him. So what they're doing now is they're taking positions and people that they know are going to be litigated against, moving them where they can to safe red states where they know that they're going to have the advantage. Because what the left is doing essentially is they're finding a liberal judge in San Francisco, in New York, what have you, Illinois. And they're using these judges who are a lot of times Obama appointees and Biden appointees, obstructionists, who all they do is they get someone to sign off on it, and that's it. So that's one of the things they're doing to work around. And so that's what I'm saying in terms of moving full steam ahead with this sort of thing, because I think they have workarounds along the way. And if you stop with the government shutdown, it brings up more issues, more problems, Doge effectively shuts down. And then what happens when the shutdown happens? If you remember, if you're alive or remember, or if you know, Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, all that happened during a government shutdown. The interns who were there weren't qualified. I'm not sure. I guess she was a volunteer. So she didn't qualify as a government payroll person. And so, idle minds, what happens then. So, yeah, I mean, bad things can happen during shutdowns. So anyway, that's my take on that. And I'm curious what you guys think about that. Now, this guy here asked me, do I eat Indian food? I typically do not. I'm not a big fan of curry. So I do not eat Indian food typically. And I just don't. So, no, I don't. So anyway, let's take a look at, let's actually move around a little bit here. And let's go to my X, because I want to kind of go through some of this and go through the news as it's going through the day and play some of these clips. Some of them are interesting, and then we'll move into the Democrats and how they are faring now, because there's still a huge backlash of what happened to them after the joint session of Congress that Trump had. And so I'm just going to go through some of this stuff here that's on our X, and then we'll comment a little bit about the Democrats, and then we'll get into the midterms that are coming up and where we are in terms of voter registration in one particular state that is holding the key to us winning big time in the future. So here we go here. This is a clip from Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm going to play it and just take a look.
This article that said, like, when you see how we were covering this article that said 55,000 Democrat NGOs were discovered that had been contributing to campaigns and moving things around and pushing propaganda, and they were all connected, and they found it through AI. That you have to go through steps and steps and steps to figure out where the money's coming from. Oh, it's all funneling down to this group, and this group does that. And it's a giant propaganda machine, a giant regime change machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
like when you're seeing how
so here it says, Joe Rogan said this. He said 55,000 Democrat NGOs, which are non-government organizations, were discovered that had been contributing to campaigns and moving things around and pushing propaganda. We talked about yesterday, Act Blue, that NGO, which is about to get shut down, who was is being accused of money laundering. And that's a big deal because Act Blue played a huge role in the 2018 midterms that out of nowhere, the Democrats just came out and snuck in and stole it from us. They infused, I don't know the number exactly, but I think if my memory is correct, around $50 million in the last month, particularly in California for congressional races. And you have a lot of seats in California. And if you want to turn a close midterms around, California is the one that can do it, especially when they're all voting in clusters and you have all these different things going on in a blue state. And you have a company like a group like Act Blue, which is nothing more than a proxy for the Democrat Party. So so that's one thing that that's going on now that kind of went without people talking about. And later on, I want to see this guy here. This is Xavier Darvasay, I believe his name is. I met him a few years at, where is it, Turning Point USA. Got a chance to talk to him. This is before he became what he is now. He's done much more since then. But he's got a good thing here talking about here about why the left hates Trump and Elon, because Elon right now is catching it. I mean, and so I feel kind of bad for the brother, but I hope he stays strong because they're really hammering him. And Trump is somebody that is actually probably used to it by now, but I'm not sure Elon is. So take a look at this here. Xavier said.
I mean, it seems like at this point, being a leftist is just a constant humiliation ritual. All of their ideas are terrible, whether it's their policies or the way that they're conducting themselves at something like the State of the Union. I don't know whose idea it was to bring those little signs, those little bingo signs, but this is not moving the needle. This is not making your side look any more credible. And I just don't understand how childish you have to be to think that that was actually going to do something productive. Well, what's becoming more and more apparent to me is that the left hates Trump more than they love America. So anything that's talking about America in a positive way, whether you're uplifting a young child that's having their dreams come true, or talking about all the different elements that he is doing to restore American patriotism and to bring families back together, those are things that Republicans love to see. But these leftists, these Democrats, they are disgusted by that because they would rather look at a young, terminally ill child as a pawn, as a reason to attack Donald Trump, than they would actually being happy for this child having their dreams come true.
I think that is a fantastic analogy that he put together there, because, you know, the left hates Trump more than they love the country. And that's a fact. And at least I think what he's considering possibly more so is the extreme left, that 20 to 25% of people that no matter what the issue is in terms of the wackiness or the straight up delusional positions that they are taking, with men being women and vice versa, those are the ones that they just don't care. They just don't care about this country. And Trump is the one who, and Elon in a lot of different ways, are the ones who are standing in the way of their conquest that they've been working on since the 30s. And I would love to bring on my friend Chad, who did the movie Uncle Tom 2. He was also in Uncle Tom 1, but he was actually a producer in Uncle Tom 2. And he can tell you a lot about that. He's done a lot of studying on this, on how the communist movement started way back when. And you saw a little bit of this in the movie Reagan that came out this past year. But yeah, and they've been working on this for a long time. And when they had Biden there, who was someone who had no idea what day it is, they had a field day. You know, this was their chance to really impose what they felt is their ideology and worldview of Marxism and put it onto a country like America and see what happens. And what you also saw, and we're finding out now, is that through those policies, they used money, your money, your taxpayer money, our taxpayer money, to prop up causes all around the world in countries that don't want it, don't desire it, have no interest in, DEI practices in particular, or let's say vaccines in Africa, which many countries didn't want, and to cause disruption in these countries, and to also try to change the cultures over there to align with a worldview where there are no borders and continual wars, interventionism are all cool. But fortunately for us, Trump won in 2024, and he's now pushing back on that. And this group of people are just having a fit. And so it's manifesting itself in what we're seeing, them burning down Tesla dealerships, and where I thought that these people were actually excited about quote unquote green technology. If you're excited about green technology, then why in the world are you attacking Tesla, the largest, if not the largest, quote unquote green car manufacturer in the world? Why? Oh, because Elon Musk is running it? Oh, why? Because Elon Musk is losing billions of dollars as the stock price goes down? Oh, why? Elon Musk is sleeping on the floor in a federal building to help a team of people uncover where waste is going and spending is going, and where maybe fraud is evident, to help save us from thieves and people who are incompetent from taking and misusing the money that they have been sworn into protecting. So he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy when you have someone, let's say, is at a car lot and they find out that people are. I saw this the other day in a TV show called Tulsa King. And sorry if I'm giving spoilers away, but I won't give you the context. But if you're in a car deal a lot and someone's stealing your catalytic converters on your cars, and you want to know who did it, and you bring in an investigation team, they go through all the footage and find out, oh yeah, I know this person. This is the guy. This guy did it. This guy did it. He lives here. She lives here. And you turn around and get mad at that person you brought in to help you identify. Then yeah, you're pretty much an idiot. You're pretty much that's what we're dealing with here. But it has nothing to do with any of that because, again, I mentioned it before on this channel. The mantra that goes back to the 60s that the Marxists had was that the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution, which means essentially we will lie and steal. We don't care. We'll tell you whatever you want to hear. We'll tell you it's about gay rights. We'll tell you it's about the environment. We'll tell you it's about racism. We'll tell you it's about, Black Lives Matter. We'll tell you it's about, men expressing their version of what they feel their gender is. It has nothing to do with any of that because when the rubber hits the road, they don't care. They toss those ideologies away because it may or may not fit their narrative. And this thing with Tesla, attacking Tesla, it doesn't fit their narrative. Yes, they say they like the environment, but because Elon's in charge of it, we don't like it. Oh, Trump says something about, let's say, first of all, you say you're for women's rights. You wear pink at these speeches that you did, but yet you turn right around and you vote against women when it comes to them having protection when it comes to sports and locker rooms. See, the issue doesn't matter to them as long as the end result is affected. That's it. That's what they're about. And that's why I can't stand them. And that's also why I love the fact that wokeism is being exposed because wokeism is nothing more than cover to hide the fact that they cannot defend any of their positions. So if you attack them, they will find one of the 7 or 8 ism words, racism, homophobic, or whatever ick you want, whatever word you want, ism or ick you want, to shut down discussion, end debates, cancel you, ridicule you, defame you, lie, discredit you, just to shut you up. And then when you have a media backing them, that to me is the worst part of everything. And I've said this before. The fact that the media backs these people, backs these narratives without coming at them again, like a Chris Wallace would have done back in the day, or Cronkite would have done back in the day, or even a Barbara Walters would have done back in the day. All of them liberal, all of them, Democrats for the most part, but at least it had some sort of journalistic integrity, which is what journalism needs to get back to. If I tell you it's off the record, it's off the record. It's off the record. But now we have leaks, we have undocumented sources, we have all these different things simply to set narratives, and we don't have pushback on things that are obvious. We have people who have selective memory, who just totally ignore the fact that Hillary Clinton scrubbed her server, using I think she used what she used BleachBit, that software. They'll ignore any of the real issues and they'll lie constantly, like how many people died on January 6th. They won't tell you, Ashley Babbitt. They won't mention that at all. And people like myself and like you probably who are listening know that you can't trust the mainstream media, that they're nothing but shills for the Democrat Party. They just parrot whatever. And another reason why they attacked Elon Musk is because of X. Because X is one of these platforms where people can bypass the mainstream media, as Rush Limbaugh would call the drive-by media. And they don't like it. Not one bit. Because they are no longer the gatekeepers to the truth. You have outlets like Epoch Times, even sites like the Liberty Daily, which I have been using for about 7 years now, since Drudge totally went AWOL. If you get a chance, check out one of our first videos we ever did on our channel called "Has Drudge Gone?" I forget what the title of it is, but it was an expose we did on Drudge, and it's really, really sad. We took a week putting that together, and watching Drudge go by the way it did, and the way it turned on Trump, who actually Drudge in a lot of ways helped Trump get elected. Still don't have the answers on that, but we still have outlets like Gateway Pundit and like the Liberty Daily and Epoch Times and many, many others. But Twitter in particular, or X in particular, and even Trump Truth Social as well, allows us to bypass their media and get to the truth and give us access to the same things that they have. And that allows us to, disseminate the truth and actually get it out there quicker than the media can actually do it themselves, because they're a monstrosity. They can't move as quickly as you can on X. And that's what we try and do here, particularly with the article about the CR resolution today. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at a few more things here. Let me see. That was for... All right, let me see what else we have here. Anything else worth looking at? That might be it. We can listen to Marco here a little bit. Here we say about the peace deal.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate. Today.
All right, so here is another take. This is from DC Drano. This is on Truth Social. I just caught this recently. He said here about the CR resolution. He said, want to know, and by the way, DC Drano is he's very conservative. He says, want to know why I trust Trump with this CR? Because in 2019, before COVID, we had the strongest economy in decades. He's already proven that he knows what he's doing. Only difference is this time, he has Silicon Bros and other previously anti-Trump industry leaders on the same page. That's pretty critical. I'll get back to it in a second. He says, I predict this next Trump economy will be even stronger. We'll not only get our spending cuts in September, but we'll grow our way out of this national debt, and we'll have a hot economy, and obstructionists can watch us as we fix America and pout from the sidelines. I think now's a good time to talk about Canada. I don't have anything prepped for Canada, but today, there is some serious stuff going on with the trade wars going on. And I may not have this exactly correct, but essentially there was going to be some reciprocal tariffs kick in on April 2nd. Reciprocal being that whatever people, tariff us or tax us, we'll turn right around and do the exact same rate. Somehow or another, this new unelected, I imagine, Prime Minister of Canada who's coming in, talking tough and saying, "Oh yeah, well, we're gonna stand up to Trump and we're gonna tariff and whatever." And then he threatened, or I'm not sure if he did or in Ontario did, threatened to cut off or tax or tariff electricity, which would affect New York, I think Michigan, I believe, and one other state. And Trump hit back with a huge. Let me read this because I want to read this because this is something that I want to show because I don't want to misrepresent anything. So let me see if I'm going to switch back to this. I'm going to find that tweet that Trump did. He did a bunch on Canada today. There he is giving some love to Elon. Let's take a look at this. This is so he's basically, I'm assuming this is the White House, but Trump decided to buy a Tesla, and he's trying to show some love to Elon because Tesla's taking a hit now with just the uncertainty in the marketplace. And so Trump, I haven't seen this clip yet, so let's check it out.
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, it's just a brake and an accelerator.
I don't want to.
Give Secret Service a light attack.
That's beautiful.
Can you start it?
Should I? I'll start.
Oh, it's so do you want to actually drive it?
He said, "Do we actually drive it?"
You don't want me to drive it, do you?
I saw Biden do a.
I'll tell you, it could get. Yeah,
very easy to drive.
That's you're the only one that saw it.
So it's
all right, we'll stop it there. I didn't plan to watch that. So that's basically him doing an ad for Elon. But let me find this Canada deal because I gotta find this. All right, this is one that's the latest one. President Trump about 10 hours ago tweeted this. He said, or truthed this. Why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity? Actually, let's go down to the one before that and we'll go up. Wow, this is a big one. Do I want to read all this? So it looks like Canada was going to place a 25% tariff on electricity. And so we decided to add a 25% tariff on, an additional 25% tariff on steel, making it 50%, and aluminum coming from the United States, effective essentially, I believe, tomorrow. This has all been repealed. This is not going through. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% to 390% on various U.S. dairy products. Now, it's interesting because I was watching Fox News today, and it was the five, I believe. And what's her name? Jessica, the one liberal, which I don't like, but there's Harold. He wasn't there today, the one Democrat. He's awesome, by the way. But this person, her name is Jessica, whatever. She's being totally unreasonable. Didn't admit to the fact that, I'm not going to pull it up, but she didn't want to admit to the fact that other countries tariff us. In fact, let me just go ahead and do that. I got to show this. I mean, this chick, man, she was out of control, man. Let me see if I can share this.
You want my notes?
Yeah.
They gave us, so I'm not Biden. I don't need notes. It's a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer.
All right, let me come down here.
I think Biden.
Ship.
Here she is.
Do that. Maybe my friends don't need a tax cut. Maybe this should be more evenly distributed. Maybe we should help out the little guy and give them a tax cut instead of the people who paid to get me in there. And you say he's doing Elon Musk a solid. Elon Musk spent $290 million to get him elected. He owes Elon Musk that car commercial, which maybe it's an ethics violation. Even the strongest allies of the president don't like these tariffs. They might think it's possible to use them at smaller levels, 5%, 10%, but the tariff whiplash is destroying us. You look at the market tanking, and I thought Peter Doocy had a great point earlier on today, our very own Peter Doocy, where he said they want federal workers to take the buyout. They want them to retire, but they're sinking their retirement accounts. And Caroline Leavitt is standing up there at the podium.
Now, I will be fair and give her that. That's one solid point that she did call out there. But she doesn't understand that your retirement account isn't going to stay there, that it's going to get better. Okay. Yes, it goes down. That's what, and not to mention, if you have a retirement account and you're retiring, you're not going to be in a high cap goods. You're going to be in low cap, very, very moderate, stable investments, because typically that's what you do, especially if you're in mutual funds. They're going to be aggressive when you're younger because you have time to recover. And as you get older, it's going to go more into bonds and less things that are low cap, not high risk or emerging funds or anything like that. So she is being a little disingenuous there. So she needs, but even still, even at a lower level, she has a point. However, those investments are going to go up even higher than they were before. So it's not crashing their investments. This isn't a stock market crash. It's not. And she's being very disingenuous. So let's keep going.
And she's just, either she doesn't know how a tariff works or she's lying to the people. She said tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries and a tax cut for the American people. And then a reporter, I think from the AP, so they got back in the room, said, have you ever paid a tariff? I have. They don't get charged on foreign countries. And then she went Trumpian. She goes, I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge on economics. I'll test your knowledge on economics, Jesse.
Go.
Are tariffs a tax on the American consumer?
If you have a tariff on a product, Jessica,
Yeah,
what that does is it makes
Why?
American workers richer.
This is
Because
what's
then you
stupid.
buy American and you bring American plants back to this country.
Listen.
That's the point. And every president has done it. And it's usually resulted in bringing jobs
He
back.
has had
Did you
the
know
worst
that
50
Richard
days
Nixon
of an American
did you know
presidency
that
for the
Richard Nixon
market
literally
since 2009? And 2009 we were in a recession.
began the pickup truck industry in this country because of a tariff on the Europeans? Did you know that Reagan slapped tariffs on Japan, ended up triggering
Did anyone
a
slap tariffs on
semiconductor
Canada?
renaissance in this country?
On Canada.
He is for
This chick's, she's nuts. Did she, oh my goodness, did she really seriously bring in Canada when Canada is charging us 250% to 390% on dairy goods? I mean, Canada is just dogging America out. And she doesn't ever mention it, not 1 second. And even when they confront her at the end, which I'm going to fast forward to because you want to hear all this, they're going to pretty much attack her on this, and rightfully so. But toward the end, they're going to say something like, are you going to admit that other countries tariff us? And are you going to admit to that? I think I'm trying to get it here.
Job, I'm going to take the hit, but I'm going to bring business back.
He's
and
not
he will.
taking any hit.
Just two quick things. One, you don't pay a tax on something.
She said Trump isn't taking a hit. He's taking a hit right now. What are you talking about? He's taking a hit. He's taking a political hit. I mean, yes, people are backing him only because they are trusting in him, like DC General was saying, that, hey, he did it before in the past. We're going to trust him to do it again. He's trying to fix the situation for the long haul. I mean, Biden's economy was inflated. He was printing money like yesterday. Printing money like it was yesterday. And it was an overvalued, uncorrected economy, which was on the verge of collapse. The housing market was the same thing with these subprime loans going back to 2006 and 2007. That could not be sustained. And then when those bad loans came to fruition and couldn't get paid because they were overvalued and they couldn't afford it because they were bad loans, then the whole housing market collapsed and people were investing and shorting it out. And it was just a catastrophe. And so the market now is correcting. And so that's what's happening. And so to say that Trump isn't taking a hit, again, she's being extremely disingenuous, or she's just incredibly stupid. And if that's the case, she should not be on this show.
You don't buy. That's the whole point of tariffs. You end up buying something here. Number two, the biggest tax we experienced was the inflation. We printed more money. What was it, like 40% of our entire currency in history in the last 4 years was printed. That was inflation.
Can I just say one more thing to Jessica while I have her here?
I'm going to be here the whole hour, unfortunately for everyone.
Why don't you ever talk to other countries and ask them to lower their tariffs?
I'd be happy to.
No, but you never
Make us a
mentioned
deal,
that.
guys. Yes,
Why
I
don't criticize them once?
You never talk
It's
about
always
other
been-
countries.
Oh, this
He's
is my
trying to level
favorite.
the playing field.
She said, "Oh my God, this woman is so ridiculous." Oh, I will. Oh, make a deal for it. She's looking at the camera, talking about, "Oh, make a deal for us." Like they're actually going to listen to you. Please get out of here. Utterly ridiculous. All right, so I think we're done on this. So let's look at some other things here. We're going on about an hour, maybe a little short today, guys. Okay. Thank you. Man and a half told me, he said Ottawa threatened to shut off electricity to 3 U.S. states also. And yeah, thank you for reminding me, man and a half. He put this on the screen here. I almost got off topic here. I'm going to get back to where I was before because I want to get back to the tweet that Trump had, because that really talks about the I lost it. Where'd it go? I lost it. Let me go back here. Because it really talks about the audacity that Canada has. Is that showing up on the screen yet? Yep, it's coming up. Okay, so let's go back to this tweet here that I had that I skipped over, which I lost. I think this is the one. Trump says, despite the fact that Canada is charging the USA from 250% to 290% tariffs on many other farm products, Ontario just announced a 25% surcharge on electricity of all things, and you're not even allowed to do that because our tariffs are reciprocal. We'll just get it all back on April 2nd. That's not the one. There was one he was talking about where he basically said that it's going to hurt people, and why would Canada actively try and hurt Americans with this? I mean, people could lose their lives if they cut their electricity. And that's something that maybe this is it. Let's read this, at least the first part. Based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I've instructed my secretary of whatever, I read that already, on steel. Also, Canada must immediately, I saw that already. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada. If other egregious long-term tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming in. Where is that statement? It was pretty hard-hitting. I can't find it. If you guys know what I'm talking about, let me know. I'm curious to see that particular tweet. Maybe the one after that. Okay, here we go. This is it. So yeah, this is it. So he says here right after that, he says, why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity, all caps, that so affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that it will be read about in history books for many years to come. See, Trump, I mean, you got to understand, yeah, you're threatening the lives of Americans. And I'm sure that just absolutely infuriated Trump. And I think that's what got them back to the negotiating table, or at least the level of civility to kind of get through this, because that's pretty nasty, Canada. And that doesn't do good for goodwill to threaten us like that for something as vital as electricity. Because trust me, looking at the numbers I'm looking at, a tariff war against Canada will put them into recession in 6 to 9 months. I've got the research there. I can show you guys later, but it will put them into a recession 6 to 9 months. And they're pretty much screwed. But they're our neighbors, and we don't want to do that. What I like to see, is a unified North America, all the way down to South America, all the way up to Greenland, where we have some sort of equitable partnership where we can have commerce, free trade, and mutual beneficial things in terms of sound borders, and also protecting us from the other hemispheres, and essentially making us very, very prosperous in the process. So that's how I like to see it happen. But the bureaucrats, the globalists, the elitists, they want open borders. They want endless immigration. They want cheap slave labor. They want policies that do nothing more than just effectively kill the sovereignty of each country that is involved, because they want to maintain power for themselves. And that's not something that Trump is going to stand for. All right, so we're getting off of this, and let's move on to a segment here where let's talk about a little bit about the coming. Well, let's skip that first. Let's go into some of these articles first. I want to get to the elections last. That's pretty exciting. I'll cover this stuff here. There's some articles I want to go over. This particular one is from Politico, of all places. This particular one is going to be dealing with an insider poll, and Democrat Party has lost its way. So let me share this and show it to you. It's very interesting. So here we go. This is from Politico again. And the Democratic Party has lost its way. A liberal pollster finds just 10% of voters think Democrats have a good plan for opposing the president. Just 10%. Voters still have a sour view of Democrats 6 weeks after President Donald Trump and Republicans swept into Washington with control of all branches of the federal government, albeit a slim margin, according to a new poll. The plurality of voters, 40%, said that the Democrat Party doesn't have any strategy whatsoever for responding to Trump, according to the survey by the liberal firm Blueprint that was shared first with Politico. Another 24% said Democrats have a game plan, but it's a bad one. A paltry 10% said that the party has a solid technique for dealing with Trump. I'm curious with that 10%, who they are and what they said. And that's coming from a Democratic Outfits survey. So, this is a good article to read. I will put this into the comments here. John Fetterman, who's senator of Pennsylvania, who's been one of the most vocal critics of the party's approach to Trump, said in an interview that the spectacle from the Democrats was, quote, sad AF, which is sad SF. You know what that is, right? Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, said that while he understands the emotional behind such outbursts, they are not my style. The illustration of how sharply Democrats are split over how to take on Trump, one party's rising stars, Maxine Frost of Florida, Maxwell Frost of Florida said his colleagues' rowdiness on Tuesday was the point. He was among a group of Democrats who departed before the end of Trump's speech. Well, good for you. Good for you. I mean, these people are just totally clueless. But I mean, I think it just goes on. It backs up what it says here. But they are, as we mentioned before, in serious trouble. The next article here is from The Nation. It's by Joshua Cohen. And this particular, let me move this out of the way. Thank you, Man and a Half, for that comment. this one here is why Democrats are losing my generation. Hint, it's not because they didn't go on Joe Rogan. If of many disheartening results for Democrats in the 2024 election, the single most demoralizing may have been what happened with the youth vote. Incredible. This is incredible. Although Kamala Harris still won the country's youngest voters by a larger margin than any other age group, her support was the lowest of any Democratic presidential candidate in 2 decades. While every Democrat since the end of the Bush administration, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden included, had carried the country's youngest voters by at least 20 points. Harris only barely managed a double-digit margin among the demographic, even though her opponent was the oldest major party nominee in American history. I tell you, the more I see these numbers from the election and from particularly this past joint session of Congress, I've used the word devastating many times, and it is so applicable. By itself, this massive shift toward the GOP, well over 20 points, according to exit polls, was possibly enough to have cost Harris the election. And we called this, and you can go back and look at the records, that, and this is not through my polling, this is through big data polling, this is through Trafficker Group, this is through Rasmussen polling, this is through those guys, On Point Politics, what's the other one? Atlas Intel, those guys, and Seth Keshler, which we'll talk about here in a second at the end of this show. The youth vote, especially white men, unchurched, under 35, in the working class environment, were swinging to Trump by 20 points over Biden in 2020. That was the data. That was what data was saying. Likewise, these are white men, by the way, Black and Hispanic men under 35 in urban areas who are working class, 20-point swing to Trump. And this is 2 months prior to the election. That is what the data was saying. And that's why Barnes was saying, Robert Barnes was saying, he's a pollster, was saying that the Democrats were wanting a lower turnout. They did not want a high turnout. Typically, Democrats want a high turnout. They want a high turnout. And by the way, all this information is documented on our locals. If you go into locals, I think this is behind the paywall, but if you subscribe there, it's all listed there. We have a whole list of things that we're doing during the election. And we were actually extrapolating these particular points, putting them into articles. So you can click right to the video of the polling podcast, and it was indexed to that particular point, so you can go to this numbers that I'm talking to you about, so you can see what I'm saying. But the point is that was done 2 months prior to the election. This was known, and now it's being codified in exit polls because the vote actually already happened. So the numbers were spot on. Throughout the trials and tribulations of the Trump era, consistent Democratic strength among young voters was looked upon as a major source of long-term optimism among liberal politicians and voters alike. And getting back to my point before, those young voters, male, working class, they wanted those people not to show up because they knew that they would lose that vote. They were considered what they call low propensity voters. So they wanted a lower turnout in general, which is why they went super duper radical, calling Trump Hitler and all that stuff, because they wanted to ramp up their base, their lunatic base, so that they could get the numbers there to the polls, because they knew if they played to the middle, they would get destroyed even worse than they already did. And to wrap this up, but by making massive gains with these exact voters in 2024, Trump completely reversed this dynamic, seemingly claiming the future liberals expected to be theirs. And according to, I'm not sure who it was, I think it may have been Steve Turley Talks, was saying, quoting, that the Z generation, or the Generation Z, wherever they are the most conservative generation on record that we've been tracking this since World War II. Here we go here. As a card-carrying member of Gen Z, born after 9/11, came of age when Trump in office, went into college during COVID, etc. Being the receiving end of this kind of crush of attention is far from a new experience. Our generation has been subject of faddish political analysis for as long as I can remember, and hardly any of the assumptions made about us have survived the test of time. I guess that's fair. And although it may be tempting to say that this is simply the result of commentators not listening to enough Gen Z voices, that's not really true. There are many people my age who are having their voices heard. It's just not particularly all of them have turned being professional Gen Zers into their entire career. So this is, here she's getting into something that I don't want to talk about, but it's an interesting article for sure. And so I have one more queued up here, and this one is from The Hill. This one is called Democrats' Performative Protests Expose the Party's Lack of an Alternative. So essentially, them acting a fool means they have nowhere else to go. And we talked about this before, that if they lose their radical base, they're going to lose 20% of their ability to be elected. And tomorrow we have an article coming out, and I'll go ahead and spoil the title. Essentially, it's going to be the five reasons why the Democrat Party will not recover, or where they will not be able to successfully rebrand themselves. So the 5 reasons why the Democrat Party will not rebrand themselves, at least in the short term, and 5 sound reasons. And a lot of it has to do with what's in these articles I just read. So this is in The Hill. Again, the title of it is Their Performative Protests Expose the party's lack of an alternative. When President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress last Tuesday, the public witnessed a stark and unmistakable contrast in leadership. On one hand, Trump offered a bold, well-articulated, which is, wow, that's something you hear a lot by the media, vision for the country and the revival of the American dream. On the other hand, viewers saw a Democratic Party still struggling to present any semblance of an alternative vision or platform. Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania perfectly summed up the challenges facing his party in the wake of Republicans' November sweep, tweeting that Democrats' conduct at the speech was, quote, sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance. We're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to. And it may not be the winning message, unquote. You think? Even those who did not vote for Trump saw a president with the determination and will to bring his agenda to life. Speaking of, for more than 90 minutes, Trump told Congress and the world that his administration would be singularly focused on ensuring that the American dream would be within reach for all Americans. And it goes on and on. I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, I'm not going to go through the polling numbers. We went up for the past 4 or 5 shows. I won't do it again, but all the things that Trump talked about in the speech, Americans liked. They were hopeful about it. The issues that he talked about, they cared about. Of the issues that they supported, which were, again, I mentioned this many times, were apolitical, vertically aligned, not horizontally, ideologically aligned, meaning it's not left and right, not conservative, Republican, or conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. No, it was top to bottom, meaning that it's issues that everybody should care about. Like, I want clean air. I want clean water. I want safe schools. I want to be able to, feed my family. I would like to go to the shopping center without being mugged. Okay, those policy issues don't have a Democrat or Republican or Green Party or Libertarian behind it. It's like, common sense, right? Or how about we don't want to have endless wars? Or how about we don't want our borders being invaded by people who don't share our values? in the process of breaking our laws. All those issues are something that Trump owns, that the MAGA agenda owns. And so as long as Trump continues on what he's doing, he's going to be above water on these issues. And as long as the Democrats keep doing stupid stuff that they did before, the Republicans are going to be in really good shape. Now, midterms, again, I got to level set here. Anything can happen. Turnout on midterms aren't that great, which, by the way, the same reasons why the Democrats didn't want a lot of people turning out for the election, because they were anticipating a moderate base, which were low propensity, but if they did vote, would vote for Trump because the numbers I just mentioned and the numbers we just saw codified in those exit polls. They knew they couldn't win. But that exact same thing that they were fearful of, we should be fearful for in 2026, because those same people won't have Trump on the ticket. They will be low propensity voters, blue collar. What's going to get them out to vote? That's going to be our challenge, to get them out to vote. And that's where the Democrats have an advantage, I think. But I'm going to show you these numbers here coming up. And this is from Seth Keshel. He's got a what's it called? It's a let's see. I forget the name of the service here, up the platform. It'll come to me. But this is behind a paywall. And this particular article he has out there, it's called Captain K's Corner. March 2025 voter registration by party updates for key 26 and 28 battlegrounds. The annihilation of the Democrat Party continues at an incredible rate, highlighted by the focus states within Florida, Pennsylvania, Indiana, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada. So essentially, what the premise is that voter registration is a key indicator as to how you're going to do in terms of an election. I mentioned this yesterday, I believe, that the Republican Party has almost always been behind in voter registration in the blue wall states, countrywide in general, that there's more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. Maybe because a lot of those are dead, I don't know. Or maybe it's because the blue collar working class people identified with Democrats. But that started to shift in 2016 when Trump grabbed almost the majority of the Midwest counties from Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Those counties swung heavily to Trump in those states, in those counties. And he ended up carrying those same counties, but with different demographics, with urban voters, different across the board, he covered. And so, but now we're seeing registration is shifting. And the key state, as I promised to mention before, that is kind of the bellwether for all of these states is the state of Florida. And Florida is important because, number one, it's a cool state, but because what Seth argues, this is what he argues, and I believe him because he was accurate. I think he's accurate 56 out of 56 in terms of his predictions for the election this past cycle. He's a really good analyst. He really gets in the weeds. If you really are a party wonk in terms of politics, then, by all means, check him out. It's worth every penny to subscribe to him and see what he has, because he will make you look like a genius. But what he's identified and what he argues is that as Florida goes, so, because it's not in a vacuum, so does Michigan and so does Pennsylvania. So if Florida gets more red, Pennsylvania gets more red. If Pennsylvania gets more red, Michigan gets more red. And that's the deal. So essentially, if you win Michigan, you'll win Pennsylvania and Florida by default, because Michigan typically votes to the left by 2 or 3 points of Pennsylvania. So if Michigan goes even a little bit more red, it all flows because Pennsylvania will go more red and so will Florida. And the key indicator here is the fact that registration in Florida is up by about 1% from November of the election to now. 1% higher, just about. All right, so then we look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania right now, the party ID has gone down as a Democrat lean by 1.1%. So it was 286,283 registered voters, or at least that was their margin over Republicans. Now it's down to 180,334. And I think I don't remember exactly what Scott Pressler, who's in Pennsylvania, he's the one who has his own action committee, his own group that goes out and does door knocking and whatnot. I think he's predicting that Pennsylvania will have a Republican majority of registration voters in a few months. And if that happens, I mean, guys, I'm telling you, this is huge, huge. The entire landscape is changing. And I think that Georgia will probably ultimately go Democrat at some point, probably by 32 for sure, maybe as soon as 2028. But I don't care. I'll trade your Georgia for a sound Michigan, a sound Pennsylvania, and a sound, Florida's already there. Or let's say a sound, even Wisconsin. I'll trade that in a heartbeat. But we'll see. Georgia isn't, I'm not throwing it away yet, but with Atlanta, the way it's growing, I would just say that's a possibility. And I mentioned New Hampshire. So let's look at Larry Schweikart here. He tweeted this out. He said, Republican voter registrations continue to surge in New Hampshire, +5 now, plus 10,000 net since November. So it looks like in New Hampshire, there's 5% more Republicans registered than there are Democrats, which is insane. It's 10,000 more since the election. So we're looking at maybe New Hampshire also being a sound Republican state as well. So that's all I have for this particular broadcast. And I'm going to go through one more comment here from Greta. Thank you so much for saying awesome. I'm not sure what it was for, but I appreciate any comment that you have. Jimmy, I do not eat Indian food. Thank you, Man and a Half, for the shout out and the information about Ottawa threatening to shut off electricity to 3 U.S. states. And of course, Greta. So a little bit of plug here for our locals. So if you are on Rumble watching this, or if you see down here below, go over to our Rumble and by all means, take a look at our membership site there. There's a join right there on the, actually, let me go to it right now and show you, just so you can see. Let me add this to the stage. I'm going to switch it over. That's the Hill article. Let's just go to Rumble. All right. So yeah, so right here, you'll see a join. Click on the join. It'll bring up this thing here. You can support and check us out. And let me just show you real quickly here also our locals, show you how to get to that. It'll take you into this essentially. But we have content and articles going way back to the election, beyond the election, different things going on there. And I could even show you, if I could find it, the actual, let me see if I can find, let me look up big data. I'll have it ready for you tomorrow. I'll show you the actual link that has all the election stuff that we have set up. We can find the source of what I was saying before about the demographics of the white and Latino and Black male under 35 working class. Let's try one more search here. I don't see it. But this is a good one here. This particular post here. This is one of my favorites posts. This is I'm Generation X, but this particular article we did back in November 19th, right after the election, talks about how Generation X was essentially the generation that put Trump over the top. It was the one group of people that Trump won outright. I think I have an actual stat here. Yeah, right here. So Trump lost every generation except Generation X, which is my generation, and that was still enough for a dominant win. And so, yeah, pretty proud about that. So the Wolverines, if you see that from the movie Red Dawn, yep, that's how we rolled back in the day, man. We rolled in the era of a Cold War, and it was not fun. It was not fun thinking that any given day you could suffer nuclear annihilation. And there's one more thing I want to bring up real quickly here, and that is that the BLM sign is gone, right? So the BLM sign that was in DC on the street. Let me share this real quickly, and I'll end here. So there's this big, disgusting Black Lives Matter Plaza, which was renamed from Liberty Plaza of all things, was jackhammered today, and it's being replaced, hopefully, with just concrete with nothing on it. It's disgusting, but it's gone. It's going to be repainted, and so thank you, Congressman or Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia. And I think just the entire woke agenda is pretty much dead now. And so because of that, that could happen. I don't think that would have happened if Trump wasn't in office. They would just laugh at him. So, okay, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And so we're seeing a huge movement getting away from DEI and wokeism, which again was nothing more. And I don't want to get too dramatic here in my wording here, but I like to look at history because things do repeat. And if you look at, I do a lot of study of the antebellum, the years prior to the Civil War, particularly in the South, how slavery was being propped up by various measures, buddy system with the Whig Party and the Democrat Party. But after slavery was over, after 1863, when you had the Emancipation Proclamation, was that kick in? And then, of course, it was won by the Union Army, because without the Army, slavery continues. But nevertheless, going into Reconstruction, you had a situation where the Democrats, by way of a particular organization who rode in horses and white hoods, would terrorize abolitionists in the South and, do really, really bad things to people. And that was their terrorist wing of their party. And as I'm thinking about this now, this is the first time I'm actually thinking about this, but I'm thinking about drawing the analogy of that particular group, what I'm talking about, as a terrorist wing of the Democrat Party. In the same way, wokeism was a terrorist wing from an intellectual standpoint for the Democrats, because they used that to hide behind their horrible ideas. And they would just attribute racism, sexism, any kind of phobiaism, climate change denier, science denier, whatever it was. They don't care about the issue because that's not the point. That's not important. The issue for them is the revolution. They didn't care as long as you shut up about it. Whether you shut up voluntarily or we make you shut up. One or the other. They didn't care. And so I would like to do an analogy on that. And I'll think about that, putting something together on that. But of course, they had the active wings too that did some of that same things from a physical standpoint. And that, of course, would be your BLM and your Antifa. So anyway, interesting perspective. I just thought about it. I'll flesh it out a little bit later. But in the meantime, guys, I'm done. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. We'll be back on Thursday. Wednesday is a non-video day. We do a lot of reconfiguring, realigning, going through budgets and stuff like that. So Wednesday and Sunday, nothing pretty much comes out, at least not without on the schedule. No work's going on. So we'll be back on Thursday. with the Conservative Take. My name is Kyle Suggs. Thank you guys for coming on. One more comment here. Oh, yeah. Man and a Half says thank you. Thank you, Man and a Half, so much for that. And guys, God bless you. I love you. And I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless, and God bless the United States of America.